All right, let's dive into the world of solar energy and high
Yes,
finance.
electrifying.
We've got a stack of documents on Waree Energies Limited, an Indian company making waves in the solar panel market.
And they're about to go public, right? IPO time.
You got it. Our listener wants to know if this is a golden opportunity or a potential pitfall. Luckily, we've got an expert here to help us break it all down.
I'm happy to help sort through it all.
Yeah,
Financial statements, market analyses, you name it. We've got it all.
perfect. So, first things first, what exactly is Waree Energies Limited?
Think of them as a key player in India's solar scene.
Okay, so, what do they actually do?
They make photovoltaic modules.
Those solar panels you see everywhere these days.
Exactly, everything from rooftop systems to massive solar farms.
Wow. So they've been around for a while, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, not some fly-by-night startup, founded back in 1990.
Really? That's a long time in the solar game. So they must be doing something right.
They've definitely hit their stride recently. The Crystal report you sent over says they were India's top solar exporter in 2023.
Impressive. Okay, so established company, impressive growth, good starting point. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of this IPO. What are the key details?
Well, they're planning to list on both the Bombay Stock Exchange and the National Stock Exchange.
The big leagues in India.
Makes sense,
That
given their size and ambitions.
for sure. But I noticed some of those key numbers were redacted, those urge-all marks.
Ah, yes. The floor price, cap price, and final offer price.
Ah.
All that will be set through something called a book building process.
So basically, they're seeing how much investors are willing to pay.
Exactly. Gauging that demand to find the sweet spot for pricing.
So no concrete numbers for our listener just yet, but we'll get into what we do know about their financials.
Sounds good.
And of course, a friendly reminder, this deep dive is just for informational purposes and absolutely not financial advice.
Couldn't agree more.
I'm like,
Always do your own research, folks, before making any investment decisions.
all right, let's talk money. How healthy are Waree's financials? Strong foundation or some cracks?
Based on their statements, they seem to be on a pretty strong upward trajectory.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Revenue has been skyrocketing, and they've been consistently turning a profit in recent years.
Oh, things are looking good.
One thing that really jumps out, their sales directly to utilities and big corporations, those more than tripled in 2023.
Whoa, that's massive. Sounds like they're landing some major contracts.
It definitely seems like they're becoming a go-to supplier for the big energy players.
Very interesting. So what's fueling this rapid growth? Just riding the solar boom, or is there something more to their strategy?
Well, they're not just sitting back. They've got this ambitious expansion plan that could shake things up. The key is vertical integration.
Vertical what now?
Sorry, jargon alert. Basically, they're not content with just assembling solar panels. They're going all the way back to the source.
Okay, so what does that even mean?
They're getting involved in producing those raw materials, ingots and wafers, that make up the solar cells.
So they want to control the whole process.
A to Z. It's a big move and requires a serious investment.
And that's where the IPO comes in.
Bingo. A big chunk of the money raised will go towards building this huge 6GW facility in Odisha, India. It'll handle everything.
Wow, a 6GW facility? That's massive. They're going all in.
It's a big bet on the future of solar, that's for sure. They'll also be using other funding sources, not just the IPO.
Of course, but big investments usually mean big risks, right? What could go wrong?
Well, for starters, construction on that scale, it's a logistical nightmare. Delays or unexpected costs could eat into their profits.
And didn't they mention relying on government subsidies? What if those go away?
Excellent point. The Indian government's been a big supporter of renewable energy, but policies can change. If those subsidies disappear, it can really mess things up.
So it's not just internal risks. This global solar market is fierce. What makes them think they can stand out from the crowd?
Well, they've highlighted a few key advantages in their documents. One is their diverse product range.
Meaning?
They're targeting both residential and utility scale projects, not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Smart move.
Mm.
Anything else?
They've also built a strong franchise network across India. Wider reach, especially for those smaller retail customers.
So tackling that price-sensitive retail segment, smart. But how sustainable are these advantages? What stood out to you when you were reading through all of this?
Well, their franchise network and brand recognition in India, definitely valuable assets.
Especially in a market like India where trust and familiarity are huge.
Exactly. But they can't just coast on that forever. They'll need to keep innovating, stay ahead of the curve.
Because the competition isn't going to stand still, right?
Oh, absolutely. Their competitors are also investing, expanding. It's a dynamic market. Waree needs to stay agile.
And let's not forget about international competition. They're eyeing the U.S. market, which is a whole different beast.
Totally different ballgame. And the timing's really interesting with that U.S. Inflation Reduction Act.
Right. Big incentives for renewable energy companies manufacturing in the U.S.
It's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
They could benefit, but they're also going up against established American companies.
It'll be fascinating to see how they handle that challenge. They've hinted at a U.S. manufacturing facility, but that's a big decision.
Absolutely, with its own set of risks and rewards. Okay, so we've covered financials, expansion plans, and some key risks. But before we go further, let's zoom out a bit. What's happening in the Indian solar market overall?
Is it as bright as everyone says?
Great question. And luckily, we've got that Crystal report to give us the big picture. Simply put, India is a hot tea market for solar. Huge growth projected for years to come.
So the hype is real.
It's a combination of things. The government has set some pretty aggressive renewable energy targets, and solar's a big part of that.
So they're actually putting their money where their mouth is.
Absolutely. Investing in infrastructure, making it easier for solar projects to get approved, you name it. But it's not just top-down either.
So real demand from consumers, too.
Definitely. We're seeing growing demand for rooftop solar from homeowners and businesses, a key takeaway from the Crystal report.
So it's not just the big companies and utilities driving this. It's everyday people recognizing the benefits of solar.
Exactly. People are realizing it can save them money on their electricity bills, plus the environmental benefits are becoming more well-known.
Especially in a country like India, already feeling the effects of climate change. Makes sense to embrace a cleaner energy source.
It's a win-win. The report also pointed out that rooftop solar systems are becoming especially popular.
People are putting those panels right on their roofs. That's cool.
Right. It's driving a lot of growth in the residential and commercial segments. So it's not just those massive solar farms anymore. It's about bringing solar energy directly to homes and businesses.
That's awesome. But it can't be all smooth sailing, right? What are some of the challenges facing the Indian solar sector?
You're right. There are some roadblocks to consider. The Crystal report highlighted a few concerns. One is the financial stability of India's electricity distribution companies, or DISCOMs, as they're called.
Discoms. Okay, now that sounds a little ominous.
Well, they play a crucial role. But a lot of these companies are saddled with debt. They struggle to pay their bills on time.
So it creates uncertainty for the solar developer.
Exactly. Another issue is India's electricity grid. They need to invest in upgrades and expansion to handle all that solar power.
Makes sense. Even with all the panels and farms, you need a way to get that clean energy to where it's needed.
It's like having a powerful engine but a rusty transmission. You can't reach full potential without the right infrastructure.
Okay, so it's a mixed bag, but overall, it sounds like the Indian solar market is headed in the right direction.
Definitely. And that's good news for companies like Waree. If they can navigate those challenges and execute their plans, they have a real shot at riding this wave of growth.
So it's a story of opportunities and challenges. Perfect for our deep dive. Now that we've got a feel for the big picture, let's get back to Waree's specific competitive landscape. Who are they up against, both in India and globally?
It's a crowded field, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So let's see who Waree's up against in this solar showdown.
Yeah, give us the rundown of the major players in India. Who are they competing with?
Well, some pretty big names come to mind. You've got Adani Solar, Tata Power Solar, Vikram Solar, those established companies with a lot of manufacturing capacity and brand recognition.
So Waree's got their work cut out for them. What are those other companies known for? What are their strengths?
Each one has their own sort of specialty. Adani, for example, is a major player in that utility scale market. They're known for their aggressive growth strategy, going after those really big projects. Tata Power Solar, on the other hand, they've been around forever. They're known for reliability, solid performance.
Okay, and what about Vikram Solar? Where do they fit in?
They're really focused on technology and innovation, always pushing the limits, when it comes to those high-efficiency solar modules. And they have a really strong distribution network, which is really important in a market as big and spread out as India.
So it's a diverse playing field, with each competitor bringing something unique to the table. How does Waree plan to stand out in such a crowded market? What makes them different?
Well, as we talked about earlier, their vertical integration strategy is definitely a big differentiator. Controlling the production of ingots and wafers gives them more control over their supply chain, which could lead to cost savings and better quality control.
It's like having their own farm-to-table operation, but for solar. But what about beyond those raw materials? What other strategies are they using to carve out their niche?
They're really emphasizing their commitment to quality and innovation. They've poured a ton of money into research and development, particularly in things like high efficiency solar cells and, those bifacial modules we talked about earlier.
Ugh, yes, those bifacial modules, the ones that can soak up sunlight from both sides, right? That seems like a smart way to boost energy output. Are those becoming popular?
They're definitely gaining traction. It's a cutting edge technology, and Waree wants to be seen as a leader in that space.
Makes sense. Stand out from the crowd. They're also really leveraging that franchise network we talked about, especially when it comes to those retail customers. But remember that Crystal report? It mentioned some challenges in the retail market, things like price sensitivity. How's Wary approaching that?
You're right. Indian consumers are very price conscious, especially for something like solar panels, which are a big investment. Ware's strategy seems to be about offering choices. They've got a variety of products at different price points, ranging from the more basic polycrystalline modules to the high-efficiency monocrystalline ones.
So something for every budget and need. Makes sense. But beyond just the price, what about customer service after the sale? That seems important for a complex technology like solar.
Absolutely. Wary emphasizes their commitment to providing comprehensive support, including things like installation, maintenance, and warranty services. They're even using technology to improve the customer experience with things like online platforms where people can monitor their systems and manage everything in one place.
So building that lasting relationship with the customer, not just a one-time sale.
Exactly. Aiming to be a trusted partner throughout that whole solar journey.
Okay, so we've got a good handle on their strategy within India, but they've also got their eyes on the global market, specifically the US. And as we mentioned earlier, that's a whole different game. Who are the big players they'll be going up against internationally?
Oh, in the U.S., they're facing some giants. Companies like First Solar, SunPower, Jinko Solar. These companies have massive production capabilities, the latest technology, and well-established global networks.
So it's like David versus Goliath, but with solar panels. What are Wary's chances of actually making a splash in that market?
Well, it's definitely an uphill battle. But they do have some advantages. Remember the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act we talked about?
Hmm.
That's huge. It's created a surge in demand for solar products made in America. And Wary could really benefit from that.
Especially if they go ahead and build that U.S. manufacturing facility they've mentioned. That would give them a local presence and make them eligible for those government incentives.
Exactly. And it's not like they're starting from scratch. They've been exporting modules to the U.S. for a while now. So they already have some name recognition and relationships with distributors and installers.
So they've got their foot in the door at least. Any other advantages?
They're really playing up their focus on high-efficiency modules, which is a big selling point in the U.S. American consumers really care about getting the most bang for their buck when it comes to energy output.
Got to maximize those sunny days. So they've got a fighting chance, but it won't be easy. What are some of the biggest obstacles they'll face in the U.S.?
Besides that intense competition, well, there's the whole regulatory maze they'll have to navigate. The U.S. solar market has a bunch of different regulations at the federal, state, and local levels, which can make things very complicated.
So it's not just about shipping some solar panels and setting up shop. Lots of red tape to deal with.
For sure. They'll need a great legal and regulatory team to make sure they're following all the rules. And then there's the whole question of customer preferences. Are American consumers looking for the same things as Indian consumers?
Yeah, I imagine there are some cultural differences when it comes to solar energy.
Definitely. American consumers tend to be more focused on aesthetics and how well things are integrated. They want their solar panels to look good and blend in with their homes.
So it's not just about functionality, it's about curb appeal, too.
Exactly. Where we will have to adjust their designs and marketing to appeal to those design-conscious consumers. They'll also need to build brand awareness and trust in a market where they're relatively unknown.
It's like launching any new product. You need a solid marketing strategy to get people's attention and convince them to choose you over the established brands. And they'll have to do all of this while staying competitive on price. The U.S. solar market is really sensitive to price.
Very true. They've got to find that sweet spot, offering high-quality products that look good and perform well, all at a price that can compete with the big players.
It's a tall order. Okay, so we've covered their competition in India and the U.S., but there's another crucial piece of the puzzle, the future of the Indian solar market itself. What did that Crystal report have to say about where the industry is headed?
The report paints a very optimistic picture for the future of solar in India. It projects strong growth for at least the next decade, driven by government support, falling solar panel prices, and increasing demand from consumers.
So the future's looking bright for solar in India. What specifically is driving this optimism?
There are a few key things to keep an eye on. First, as we've already talked about, the Indian government is fully committed to expanding renewable energy. Solar is a major focus of that. They've set some pretty ambitious targets and are actively putting policies and incentives in place to achieve those goals.
So it's not just talk. They're taking real action to support solar energy.
Exactly. They're investing heavily in infrastructure, simplifying the approval process for new projects, and providing financial backing to developers. It's a very supportive environment for the solar industry.
Okay, but what about consumer demand? Is there enough interest to justify all of this government investment?
That's a key question, and the Crisol report says yes. Consumer demand for solar is on the rise. There are a few trends driving that.
Oh, like what? Tell us more.
Well, one thing is that the cost of solar panels has been dropping steadily, making solar more accessible to more people.
So it's becoming more affordable for everyday folks and businesses to go solar. That makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Plus, there's increasing awareness of the environmental benefits.
Especially in India, a country that's very vulnerable to climate change. Embracing a cleaner energy source makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. People are realizing that solar can help reduce their impact on the environment and create a more sustainable energy system for the future.
So it's a win for the environment and the economy. Any other trends worth mentioning?
The report highlighted the rising popularity of rooftop solar systems. We're seeing more individuals and businesses choosing to install those panels right on their roofs. That's a big driver of growth in the residential and commercial segments.
So it's not just about those massive solar farms anymore. It's about bringing solar energy directly to people's homes and businesses.
Exactly. And this trend is being supported by government incentives and financing programs, making rooftop solar even more affordable.
Okay, so it sounds like the Indian solar market is booming, but are there any potential roadblocks that could slow things down? What did the Crystal report say about that?
Well, the report does point out a few challenges that need to be addressed for the industry to reach its full potential. One key concern is the financial health of those electricity distribution companies in India, the discoms we discussed earlier.
Right, those companies that buy the electricity from solar developers and then distribute it to consumers.
Exactly. Many of those companies are struggling with debt. They're having trouble paying their bills on time, which creates a lot of uncertainty for solar developers.
Yeah, if the companies buying the electricity aren't financially stable, it can make things really risky for everyone involved in the solar industry.
Absolutely. Another challenge is the need for more investment in India's electricity grid infrastructure. They need to upgrade and expand the grid to handle all of that new solar power coming online and make sure it can be efficiently transmitted.
So even if India has all of the solar panels and farms it needs, it also needs a strong network to deliver that clean energy to the people who need it.
It's kind of like having a high-performance race car, but with weak brakes and bumpy roads. You need the right infrastructure to take full advantage of its capabilities.
So it's not a completely smooth ride ahead, but overall, it sounds like the Indian solar market is on a positive trajectory.
Definitely. This creates a favorable environment for companies like Waree. If they can navigate these challenges and execute their plans well, they're in a great position to capitalize on this growth.
It's a story of opportunity and challenges with a lot of factors to weigh. There's no easy answer when it comes to investing in this IPO.
For sure. And that's what makes it so interesting. There's a lot to consider on both the positive and the potentially negative sides.
A classic risk-reward situation. Now, before we move on to our final takeaways and advice for our listener, we should address something that comes up a lot with investments like this. Social responsibility. How much do we know about Waree's social and ethical practices? Solar energy has a reputation for being sustainable and ethical, but is that always the case in the real world?
It's a really important question, and unfortunately, those documents you sent over don't go into much detail about Waree's social responsibility initiatives or their commitment to things like ethical sourcing of materials.
So that's something potential investors might want to research further. They might want to make sure their investment aligns with their own values.
Absolutely. It's always a good idea to look beyond just the financial numbers and try to understand the broader impact a company has on the world.
Great point. Okay, let's bring all of this together and offer our listeners some key takeaways to consider. Okay, so big picture time. If our listener is thinking about investing in Waree's IPO, what are the key takeaways? The good, the bad? Lay it all out for us.
All right, let's start with the potential upside. Waree is operating in a really exciting market. India's solar energy sector. It's primed for huge growth, strong government support, those falling solar panel prices we talked about, and just a ton of demand from businesses and consumers.
So the general market conditions are looking good for solar companies in India.
It's looking pretty sunny. And Waree, they're in a good spot to ride that wave. They've got decades of experience. Their financials are solid, showing consistent profits and that impressive revenue growth.
Yeah, we dug into those numbers. It's not like they're just going along for the ride. They're really a driving force, right?
Exactly. And that vertical integration strategy, that's a bold move. Could really pay off. Controlling the whole process, from raw materials to finished solar modules, it's all about efficiency, maybe even squeezing out higher profit margins.
Building that solar empire from the ground up. But
Totally.
it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? There've got to be some risks for investors to think about.
Oh, there are definitely risks. You know, those big expansion plans, especially that massive 6 gigawatt facility in Odisha, those come with their own set of challenges. Construction on that scale, it's complicated. Delays, unexpected costs, regulatory hurdles, you name it.
Yeah, that's a lot that could go wrong.
It's a gamble, for sure. And you know how they're relying on those government subsidies? Well, if those get cut back or disappear entirely down the line, it could throw a wrench in the whole thing.
And we can't forget about the competition. It's intense, both in India and on that global stage. They're going up against some real powerhouses in the solar industry.
Yeah, Waree's going to have to fight to maintain that market share, especially in the U.S. It's a whole new ballgame over there.
Hmm.
So it's a high-risk, high-reward kind of situation. What are some key questions investors should be asking themselves when they're looking at this IPO?
Good question. Break it down for us.
Okay, so first, the financials. Don't just glance at them. Really dig in. Look beyond that top-line revenue growth. What are their profit margins really like? What about debt levels, cash flow? You want to make sure the foundation is strong.
Got it. So due diligence on those numbers. What else?
Think critically about those expansion plans. Are they realistic? Have they really thought it through? Do they have backup plans if things go wrong? You know, supply chain issues, regulations. Don't just take their word for it.
Look for proof that they've really dotted their I's and crossed their T's.
Exactly. And don't forget about the competitive landscape. What are they doing to stand out from the crowd? Are they innovating, adapting to how quickly the market changes? Can they compete with the big players? It's a tough industry.
So it's all about really understanding their strengths, weaknesses, their overall game plan in this complex world of solar energy.
It is. Investing is always about weighing those potential rewards against the risks.
Great advice. So, listener, we've laid it all out. The decision is yours. Does Waree's IPO sound like a good bet? What other research would you do before taking the plunge? Would you dig into their sustainability efforts, their ethics? Would you look at what the analysts are saying? Check those market forecasts? There's a lot to consider.
Oh, and don't forget to check out Waree's own materials, their investor relations stuff, their website, maybe some presentations they've given, and see if you can find any independent analyses from industry experts, financial publications, that sort of thing.
A 360-degree view, that's the best way to make informed investment decisions. And of course, remember, this deep dive, it's just for information. We're not giving financial advice here.
Always, always talk to a qualified financial advisor before you make any investment decisions. Don't forget that.
Couldn't agree more. And with that, we've come to the end of our deep dive into the world of Waree Energies Limited and India's booming solar market. We hope this has been helpful, maybe even sparked some new ideas.
It's been a fascinating journey, exploring the company's history, their plans, their competition, all those opportunities and challenges that come with being a part of this industry.
Thanks for being with us on this journey, listener. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into something new, something that matters to you. Until then, stay curious, keep learning, and keep those intellectual sparks flying.
See you next time.